Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the webinar today. It's got a robotics ESL class, Tyson does, Contextualized ESL for learners in advanced manufacturing. Before I get to our presenter, I want to introduce everyone to Robert Breitbart from our partner at Burlington English. Robert.
Thanks so much, Bethel. And everybody, I sure hope you have those seat belts on your chairs right now, because we are in for a treat. The ever engaging Anson Green. And so this is definitely going to be exciting. And I love topics. I love this topic of how do we put the W in WIOA? How do we really do workforce? And I think of all those years that I was in the classroom back in the 90s, and it was a nice ESL class I held, but was I really helping to get my students' future ready? What are they going to do while they're in my ESL class to get a job and keep jobs? But really, what if in their life plan to go on for more study or to get their HSC, their high school equivalency? And so with Burlington English, we provide you with everything you need. So this screenshot right here, this is from our Burlington core. So this is part of everything we do, even with our core product, is get your learners at all 6 of the NRS levels, thinking about life after ESL, if you will, or concurrently with IELCE and IET all around the country. And again, if for your teachers, so many part-time, whether you're full-time or part-time, provides you at your fingertips everything you need for reading, writing, listening, speaking, grammar. But again, we're going to have it contextualized and what's really going to help our learners. And speaking of teachers, I want to make their lives easy. I want to make, whether you're full-time or part-time teachers or you support teachers, I want to put everything at your fingertips. And that includes things that, while I was a fairly good ESL teacher, I wasn't a trained career counselor. So isn't it great with Burlington English? We've got everything that you need right there. So you can not only help your ESL learners acquire English, but again, have a plan for the future. And speaking of plan, well, guess what? I want to make sure if I'm a director, if I'm putting together, IET type programs, job training, I want to make sure somebody doesn't get into a program and say blood. Nobody told me about blood if I'm in a health occupations. So again, what's really neat about Burlington English is they explore, they find out about career clusters, career ladders. And what I love about this is, as you can see that I've just circled right there, they save everything to a digital portfolio. And then again, you write things down, you have a better chance of fulfilling them. So every one of your learners can start an educational plan, a career plan that's going to help them, understand things that they might not have been aware of in their home country. Things such as high school equivalency and apprenticeships. And once again, they put it all in their own words with models and everything that teachers need to do all of this good stuff. And once again, all saved to a portfolio. So before we turn it over to Anson, we'd love to help you out. We'd love to get you started. So please reach out to my dozens and dozens of colleagues all around the country at burlingtonenglish.com/contact. Now back over to you, Bethel, and enjoy the webinar. Appreciate sponsoring it.
Thank you, Robert. We're so grateful for our partnership with Burlington English. And now to introduce our great presenter, Anson Green. Anson.
Well, I want to thank everybody for having me out today. I'm real excited about what we have to share from Tyson Foods and what I've been doing. And I'm hoping this will be somewhat of a provocative session for folks. I'm going to use that word because I really think we are on the cusp of some really important areas that adult education can really bring tons of value for adult learners and workers in the United States. So let me get my screen up here for you and move this little bar out of the way. Let's get it out of the way. There we go. And first off, I want to, y'all are doing it already in such a great way, but please share who you are in the chat. And I added a little element there. Why did you join this call, this conference? Because I'd really like to hear what's going on out there from you guys when it comes to digital, when it comes to technology. And that's really what I want to talk about today. I'll start with a message that's real important. We're all in the business of really helping transform and support the lives of our students in some way or another. Um, on all aspects, you're so well aware, and we're going to talk about some new aspects today, perhaps, that digital and digital tools and using technology is permeating everything we do and everything our students is doing. And so I've added that, along with our other 3 R's, reading, writing, math, and English, but digital to me is on equal par as something we've got to take serious and do as much as we possibly can in the classroom to help our learners not only survive in a digitally rich environment, whether it's at the doctor's office, whether it's with their child's teachers at school, whether it's at work, and really help them become digital thrivers in that process. So let's talk about what we're doing here. A little bit about me, Anson Green. I work at Tyson Foods. We have a massive program, which we'll talk a little bit more, that supports our frontline workers that are largely immigrant and refugee with ESL, digital skills, career training, and my focus is digital and automation. So technology and robots for those limited English and lower skilled workers that we have across the United States. And we do a lot of that work in partnership with people like you guys, some of you on the meeting today we work with, and we really appreciate your work there. And I'm hailing from San Antonio, Tejas, coming to you from Texas. So happy to join you. My email's there if you got follow-ups, and I'll show this at the end there. But I'm going to begin with a story. And I want to tell you a story about an individual, and I want you to start putting your thinking cap on about careers. Robert mentioned careers earlier on, and a lot of you are in the business of helping people get out of poverty in one way or the other. You're doing it through adult education and literacy. But I want to talk about Manuela here. Manuela, I'm going to just tell you her profile, and then I want you to think about what kind of jobs she might have. So she's been in the United States for 23 years. She doesn't speak English. She didn't learn English while she was here, but her kids do. They learned English in school, and she's picked up a little bit of that, but she's largely speaks Spanish in her community and in her home and at work. She has just a few years of education from her home country, never been to college, of course, and never really had a job that used any kind of technology. So when we think of that kind of profile, which a lot of us have those students in our classes that are in the US, they've been here a long time, they're working. And so when you think of that, put in the chat what types of jobs, based on that criteria, you think Manuela would qualify for. Doesn't speak English, minimal education in Spanish. She probably reads a little bit of Spanish. Anybody? Cleaning, okay. Kimberly, thank you there for contributing. Manual labor, Gabriella, nurse's aide, good. Let's see here. Sewing, yep, very good. Chicken factory, construction, housekeeping. All right, you guys got the the gist of where we're going here. Construction, I like this assembly line. Well, you're going to be surprised because actually Manuela works all day with a robot. There she is. She works in not a poultry factory, but actually a tortilla factory. We make tortillas at Tyson Foods too, and she runs this robot here, which is called a collaborative robot. And she's pretty good at it, and she loves it. So there she is, using digital technology, and here's this thing in action. And this is designed to be her workmate. Rather than lift that 38-pound box of tortillas, she's letting a robot do it, and she's taking care of other business. And there she is telling me all about it. So non-English speaking, she was telling me through a translator. I don't speak Spanish. She was also very, very limited education many years ago in Mexico, and been working in the U.S. and working at Tyson for years. So this really, when I saw it about a year ago now, really disrupted my thinking about what's possible and what's happening. And so this is not some anomaly. This is happening down the street from where you are perhaps already. She's reading the information about how the machine operates. She enters numbers into the robot to tell it what to do and what to pick up and how to arrange it on a pallet. The interface is in Spanish, so she can actually leverage some of her Spanish. And she's got to enter and do some math because sometimes she has to reconfigure things to handle a different size box. And so she's really engaging in a pretty sophisticated way. When I look at this, I'm like, wow, I need to pay attention here to figure out what I'm going to do here. But that's what she's doing. And it really made me, when I saw it, it blew my mind, which it may be blowing some of y'all's minds. But she does other things too. She's does manual jobs. She's moving these big heavy pallets around. She's driving a forklift, and I saw her about a month ago actually driving a forklift. I waved to her. She was still working there, doing fine. So she's multi-skilled also, and this is one of the things that we'll see as more and more technology takes away these terribly manually labor-intensive jobs, is that you can use workers to do other things that are more critically based and kind of make their skills more durable. So there she is over there. She showed me how to use that forklift. It's got a computer interface on it in Spanish, and it helps her navigate around and explains to her where to put things and where to pick up orders and things like that. So think of the assumptions that we might make about adult learners when we hear a story like that, because this is happening. It's real. If we looked at Manuela by the profile that we heard, we probably would not, and we did not identify those possibilities, did we? Cleaning houses, manual jobs, doing childcare, doing nurse's aid. Those are things that we picked out. And in fact, there's a lot of other potential out there, and people are doing those jobs already. And you probably have a similar story. And if you don't, maybe you can ask around in your classrooms if you're a teacher and find out, because you probably do. And I think one of the big takeaways for me is that, and you'll hear this from me today, is that we need to be communicating more about work with our students and what they're doing. And you're going to be surprised, I think, when you do that. The other thing we need to do is really think about how test scores influence our perceptions of what's possible, of what people are currently doing in their jobs, and what the potential is. And I think sometimes we look at spreadsheets of numbers, we look in our data systems, we see our level 1 ESLs, and we make a proxy decision in our brain that these are going to be individuals that are not using technology necessarily, or if they are, limited, and that they're doing those jobs that you guys identified early on, when in fact, it's not the case. So that's what the session's going to be about today, is talking about that, hearing from you, and really thinking about and looking at what is the technology. I mean, look at all this cool stuff on the screen here. You've got our robot, you've got digital scanners, you've got this individual out there on the freeway. I took this picture about a month ago building a freeway, but he's got an iPad, 12 o'clock at night out there, and he's engaging with technology. This thing nails tiles to roofs and drills holes in roofs, which is a terribly difficult job because you got to lift your hand and a drill up in the air. So it's bringing a lot of quality to the lives of these workers, but they got to know how to use it, and that's where you guys come in. I really love this topic, and we're going to hear more about it. So I'm going to begin with a question. Who's given blood lately? Anybody giving blood? Just say, yes, I have in the chat. You probably have. Somebody on this call has probably given blood or taken someone to go give blood. Well, I did this the other day. And when I walked into the nice doctor's office clinic, I was faced with this. There was nobody there. This was my greeting. And it was a self check-in right there. And I had to do all this stuff on my own. Now, there was a button I could push to call somebody up to help me. But this is what our students are facing every day for a simple thing like giving blood. So when I mentioned earlier about technology disrupting common things, life skills, going to the doctor, we've got to really ask ourselves, in that situation, how many of our students might walk out It's not even in other languages here. It's just in English, and I live in San Antonio. And so this is really where you guys come in. We've got to really start looking around us, taking pictures like I did here, and talking about this with our students and building curriculum to tackle those kinds of things. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit and think about our classrooms. Think about an ESL classroom. We've got our teacher there, and she's just told the class, we're going to learn about digital skills and computers. And maybe in her mind, when she said that, she's thinking of this, a PC. She uses a PC, and that's what she knows best, and that's what she's comfortable with. But when she said digital, or when she said computer, people were thinking about other types of things in that classroom, because that's what they are maybe struggling with at work or want jobs that do. And these are things the teacher is less familiar with, or completely not familiar with. And many of you are probably in that case right now. But who knows about these things? The students. And so I think one thing we need to start thinking about is, how do we engage and talk about these types of digital skills? Because they're prevalent and pervasive in low-skilled work. I'm not talking about things that a 2-year degreed, technical skilled, college-trained individual that speaks English has to use at work. I'm talking about what your low-skilled ESL teachers and everybody else above them are using at work, or need to use at work, or are fearful that if they don't learn how to use it at work, they will lose their jobs. So we're going to talk about other types of digital skills and tools, and how we could be teaching those things. Definitely reconsidering what we mean by digital and digital skills and digital literacy. We've mastered the PC, folks. We've mastered smartphones, and teaching that. We've got the curriculum. We've got the know-how. We're confident. But when you're talking about low-skilled individuals that maybe aren't readers of English or read very well, PCs, complicated things on smartphones are not things they're going to be doing in their jobs. They're going to be doing other types of digital work. And so if we want to stay responsive to where they are and what they showed up for, we need to really branch out and challenge ourselves about learning new ways that we can do this. And we'll also talk in this session about how to use AI to help us do this, because you may be saying, well, how am I going to teach all these cool tools, Anson? I don't know anything about those. Well, you don't necessarily have to, because there are ways you can find that out, and AI is here to help also. And I'm going to show you how I did it, because what do I know about robotics? Nothing until now. Now I'm doing that as my job title. So the session's not going to be just about robotic automation. That's what I'm highlighting, but we're going to keep it broad, because not everybody's working with robots, but they're working with other digital tools. And we're not going to talk about a specific curriculum, but we're going to show you how to build curriculum. So a little bit about what it is and what it's not. So let me pivot a little bit and just talk about the data. So here are these nice fellows. I snapped this picture. They're driving a forklift with a big computer screen in the middle of it. So forklift drivers are digital users in a very big way nowadays. And you might not be thinking about that when you're thinking about forklift driving, but that's where it is today. But if you look at the numbers, and this is some great data that Amanda Brooks and Shilcock and others came out with last year. You've probably seen this data. But 92% of jobs, they did a massive review of tens of thousands of points of data about jobs. And they found that 92% of jobs either definitely require digital skills, or most likely require digital skills. That's everything out there, guys. 92% is a large number. And only 8% did not require job skills. And they're looking at job descriptions. So the job descriptions are the bona fide work requirements, tens of thousands of job descriptions. And this is what they came up with. So this is the wake-up call if you need numbers to convince you. If you don't need numbers, you can just ask the question in your class and find out, because you will find that out real clearly, because these individuals are providing for their families. They do have jobs, and they're using unique types of digital. So if you look at a picture like this and you say, okay, I see some digital here. Well, how many items in this one picture have digital? Who can put a number in the chat? How many digital items do you see in this picture? You can't count the clock because I don't think that's digital, actually. It's electric. 4. All right, Debbie. All right. 3. Anybody else? 6. Nice. All right, 4. I'm coming up with a lot of 4s. You're right. We got a scanner here. We got another scanner there. We got a digital display. They call this a human machine interface in the geek talk of the automation world. And then you got one back over here in the corner too, you might have missed. There's actually some digital screens up here. See these? These screens tell them how they're doing in terms of their outputs. So there's a lot of digital going on here, but most likely these individuals didn't go to college to learn this. They learned it on the job. And they transitioned to these jobs, or they came in one day and these new tools were given to them. And sometimes they weren't prepared to use them. I work with lots of businesses. I talk to lots of businesses, and businesses need people like you because businesses are struggling with how to teach these kind of skills. They can buy these kind of pieces of equipment easily, but they often know little about lower skilled workers. They don't collect a lot of information on those workers. And they don't have ESL programs. Tyson Foods is lucky because they have people like me and other people that work at Tyson that are from adult ed and understand how to teach adult learners. And so this is a place where you as program teachers, as directors, as leaders, you have a place to really bring some value to your business community because they're buying this equipment. It's becoming cheaper. It's making jobs easier and safer. And it's becoming something that is the business norm for competitiveness. But the workforce is not changing. And in fact, the workforce is probably only becoming more diverse and more language diverse. And so we've got to help our business community keep up. And that's a great way because adult ed is all about making workforce needs easier for our performance measures and for our business community and for our workers because we want to help them grow. If we think about automation in particular, 51 to 52% of jobs are going to be enhanced by automation in the next 5 years. So here you got all kinds of other cool tools. See this one in the middle? This is another picture I just love. I was walking through a Walmart and there was a floor cleaner just driving along by itself. Nobody was in it. They actually had a little tape across it so that there was no seat in there. Nobody was in there. But somebody was running it and somebody was programming that thing and maintaining that thing. So the monotonous job of cleaning floors has turned into a job where automation comes in. And I can tell you this too. There's assumptions about automation that jobs are being lost, and that does happen. But by and large, the real enhancement of automation is people and automation working together because automation is not as great as everybody thinks. It needs help. And the people best positioned to help are the ones that do the jobs now. And businesses know this, but they have to have methods to train those workers to make that transition. And it's happening all around us. But it's where you guys really, really come in. I've explained why automation, I can tell you, look at Tyson Foods, Reuters newspaper, $1.3 billion being spent, billion, not million, on automation in the next few years. So we're going big on it, but we are not the only ones. And in fact, in some ways, we may be not at all the first to the game. And so this is happening to work. And so if you're on the call and you wake up and say, hey, I want to help my students earn more money, or I want to help do workforce things, or I teach an IET class, you need to be thinking about automation and digital as what you're leading with in terms of helping yourselves get ready to figure out how to best teach that. It's a big number, and this is not an uncommon number. So it asks the questions, are we teaching the right digital skills? Because these workers in the Tyson plant most likely are not going to be using that tablet in their job. They're going to be using something else. And that's the kind of pivot that I'm asking folks to think about. But we got a long way to go in some ways because our performance measures, I just took these out of different places related to digital, are heavily biased towards using a PC using a smartphone, using social media. Because that's what we know, that's what we love, and that's what we are comfortable with. And we treasure what we measure, and we teach what we know. But these aren't necessarily the competencies that are happening in the lives of our workers and our students at work. And so we've got to think about how we define digital and how we define technology and really rethink, because we are overly biased, I would say, on what we know and are comfortable with. I definitely have been. What we use every day, sure, I can teach Microsoft Word. I use it for 7, 8, 10 hours a day. But then we have our standards. And so you leaders on the call, state directors and others that work on standards, it's time to think about those in some dramatically different ways and think about how we can teach more durability when it comes to digital skills. You're not going to be able to teach every robot that's out there and every digital tool, but there are transferable skills across those tools that can be taught. So I'm going to just show you some more pictures here. And in the chat, I want you to tell me what kinds of literacies you see here, not just digital, of course that's there, but what other literacies do you see? Just put it in the chat. Mechanical, numerical, numeracy, very good, Rowan. Pivot, graphics, numeracy, excellent, thank you. Reading, yeah, a lot of reading there. Reading skills, applied reading skills, absolutely. You guys get it, diagramming, got it. So the things we know and love are right there in the middle. This is all digital stuff, guys. This is the screens. These are the sheets that they have to take information from. These are the tools that they use. So it's not about replacing reading, writing, math. Nobody on this webinar thought so, but it's about using not only the technology, how do I turn it on? How do I manipulate it? How does it work? But what is on it? And what are we going to have to teach in terms of reading it? Because these are new to us. It's just like when you get introduced to a new cell phone interface or a new Windows interface, and you're like, I don't know where to find the settings in this anymore. What happened? That's what this looks like to our learners. And some things are really important, some things aren't. Some things are in other languages, sometimes they're not. And so getting to know this information, hearing from your students, is a great way to do that. I've got an inside line because I can go walk up to that machine at a Tyson plant and do it. You may not have that access, but guess who does? Your students do. They can bring you information, and your workforce training partners in your IETs are also training on this equipment. So you can cruise over to the training center and engage that piece of equipment yourself, take pictures of it, and do some analysis of what's going on there, because that's probably what some of your students are using at work. So I've talked a lot about the context, but I wanted to really set the table in terms of what we're talking about here. But let me tell you a little bit about Tyson and our team members, because I love them and I'm so proud of what we're doing over there. But this is a very diverse group and a very underskilled group. And I want to say that because anybody that's on this call saying, well, there's some high skilled folks over there that are doing all this work with technical, it's not the case. A large percentage of our 120 plus thousand workforce are immigrants and refugees from all over the world. We have over 50 languages in our footprint across the United States. And they work in all types of different processes. We make sandwiches, we make chicken products that you know in the store, we do beef, we do tortillas. And so there's a lot of variability and a lot of different types of workers. And that's not uncommon in manufacturing and production. So if you're in a manufacturing environment in your IETs, or you're working with businesses or want to work with a big company in your town or a small one, chances are production level workers are going to have a very similar profile. At Tyson, you're probably aware, but we do digital skills across the country in our programs, a lot of them with people like yourselves. ESL, I'm doing the automation and smart factory models, which are really digitizing our workplaces. And then we've got our online program that offers online college degrees all the way up to master's degrees. So we really have a full gamut and are becoming like our own university to, kind of basic skills to university level solution in our plants. Other businesses want to grow and are growing in this way, and you probably know some of those companies, but they need help. I would say right now, I have a work group of businesses that I chat with about these things. They need people like you to be collaborating with them because they don't have the skills for lower skilled individuals to really build models for them. So you have a lot to offer. Here's a little bit more about when we ask our thousands of workers about digital. Here's what they say. They couldn't, 40% could not create an online account. Um, that's a staggering number. Only 42% thinks they could actually do self-service on a PC, meaning they could go find information on their own. So we're not talking about single-digit percentages of folks that need help. We're talking about thousands of people in a company as big as Tyson, and not uncommon with other employers in your community. So we got to really think about our methods of what we're doing, what we're thinking about, and I want to kind of talk about how we build curriculum now and what I did. I'm not saying it's the best way. This is what I did and how I thought about things, but this might be something to give you a place to start. So I'm going to look at it in 4 dimensions. How do I understand the technology enough to teach it? Over a year ago, when I got introduced to the robot we saw at the beginning, I didn't know how to teach that thing. I had no idea how to start. So I was there, and you're probably saying the same thing to yourself. What would I do if I asked the question of my students, what tools do you use at work with technology? How am I going to do anything with that information? So that was my question too. Next question, how do I match the skills of the learners to the tech tool? And that is this matching. Like, how do I know? I know what my students' skills are. I've tested them. I've talked to them. We've done a lot of work. But how do I match it to the skills of that tool itself and whether they could do it or not? Then how do I develop the curriculum? And I want to talk about that because that's sometimes the thing that gets in the way of what we do. But we've got a lot of nice new ways to do that through AI and through other things. And I want to just tell you what I've done. And then where do workers need practice? How do I know that I'm teaching the right stuff, but also where are they getting stuck? And where are students getting stuck at work? And so there's some simple ways you can do a lot of this stuff. It's not something that I'm asking you to go dedicate your life to for a whole year to figure out. So let me tell you what I did on how to understand the technology enough to teach it. And I'm talking about technology I don't know, because everybody on this phone call can teach Microsoft Word most likely and can teach Office software and how to use a cell phone and how to use social media, because you know how to use that. You do use it every day. But think it to yourself, what would you do in that environment? If you had to teach tools that you didn't know, tell me what you would tackle in the chat. How would you do it? And then we got some curriculum developers out there that probably have a lot of ideas. Okay, you'd work with the subject matter expert. Very good. Demonstrations, you'd go play with the tech. Yeah, start with a focus group of students. I love that. Show by example. We all learn and make mistakes together. You guys have got it down. You know, these are good methodologies and these are great adult learning theory. So you have to first mentally cross the bridge that you can do this. I like Yolanda. She's going to start with ChatGPT. She must have seen this show before because that's what I'm going to talk about too. But you have to first get through the bridge that I can do this. And I tell you what, when I first saw that robot, even though I've been in this program, the adult ed for 20 years, I questioned whether I could tackle this. And so that's fine. And you have to know that you can, and you do it all the time. You guys have all tackled stuff before that you didn't know at the beginning. So here's what I did, what we are doing, and what we do as a rule. Talk to workers. Talk to your students about their current and their new jobs. Have a discussion because you're good at doing that. You like to talk to the learners. Adult ed is based around learner feedback. Find out. Have a considered session about this. Ask them, have a special session and engage them about technology. Because the first place to be is to figure out what are the problems they're trying to solve in their lives. And getting that baseline gives you everything you need to start moving forward on how to develop, because you don't know what the best and most important tasks are until they tell you. And you don't know what they might be worried about if they hear about our factory's going to get a new robot, or they're implementing a new digital system in our warehouse, and I don't think I can do it. That's not just a time to kind of empathize. It's a time to say, let's talk about it. What do you know? Let's dig in. And maybe if you're out there working with your subject matter experts, engage the business or engage your technical training to folks at your colleges. Or if you're one, bring that to your ESL class teachers and say, like, hey, these are the big things coming with this new technology that's being bought by all the companies, our community. Let me tell you what we need to be teaching in ESL about that. So you've got experts around you, starting with the workers, but also getting into other people in your community. Talk to the technicians and experts and trainers. Go in there and talk to your college folks. If you can get into the workplace, talk to them, because the people at work are the ones suffering and struggling the most. And when I talk to businesses and hear them say, or I talk to Tyson plants and they say, oh man, we, had this great idea and we're struggling because of X, Y, and Z. They can't do this. We can't figure out how to teach this, or this is always breaking down. We don't exactly know why. It could be operator error, it could be something else, but we aren't good at diagnosing skills in lower skilled adults. Help us out. You'll find that help. You'll find that lifeline, and you'll be that lifeline for these individuals, because businesses by and large that I talk to are struggling in this area because they want to move to these efficiencies and these ways to make work safer and more enjoyable for their workers. And then watch what people do at work. When there's an accident, like right here, this box opened up, chicken fell out. Oh my God, what happened? Why did this happen? And do a problem analysis, do a problem solving activity to diagnose, was it operator error? Was it something to do with the machine itself? What is going on there? If you can't see it in person, which you probably can't, talk to the workers, talk to the technicians, talk to people in training about what are the hardest things for them to teach. When I used to work at a college, I would talk to our technicians, and anytime they would say, I hate teaching them math because they should know math already. To me, that says, Anson, you got to teach math to these workers more and more, because it's a skill that is falling on the technician or falling on the business. And so that's what we're good at. But you got to be an active listener, and you've got to ask those questions and be in those discussions. Second thing we did was look at the instructions, the work instructions. What are they looking at work? Sometimes we call that the realia, the actual artifacts that you see. Here we see a stack pattern for the robot, all these numbers in odd orders. All that is the way the boxes are stacked on the pallet. 1, 2, 3, you see how it's oddly arranged. That's a conceptual spatial skill that you got to teach. There's a method behind this. To someone that hasn't been taught, they look at that and say, like, I can't make sense of why those numbers are arranged there. You've got what they call standard work instructions or procedures. Everybody in business has these, and these are a gold mine for understanding what the machine does and how it works. And this is where your chat GPT really comes in handy. And then you've got your signage. And I think a lot of us know this already. What are the signs they look at? What are the things they need to be aware of? So you're probably doing some of this already, but you need to do a lot more of it, because this is new ground for you. Imagine trying to teach a PC 20 years ago when you didn't own one. Well, I did that in 1997, 98, and that's how I learned how to learn how to use a PC. My boss came to me and said, like, you got to teach a computer class, and I said I didn't have a computer at home. But I had to figure it out, and I had to learn on my own before I could ever help my students. So a lot of us weren't there. We grew up digitally native, and we didn't have that challenge. Now you got a new one here, because there's a lot of new equipment out there. I brought this up earlier, but looking at the digital displays, if you can, getting pictures of them. Guess what? The internet's a great place. You can just find the names of the machines and Google up their displays and information about them, and you'll usually find stuff just like this. Well, this is a reading exercise. And you might not know what some of this stuff does, but some people will in your school, your workforce trainers, or your businesses. If you know a business is buying something, the first thing you need to say is like, "Hey, can I come and get a look at it? Can I talk to your technicians? Can I take pictures of these things? Because I'm going to build a reading activity out of this, or I'm going to teach these skills in English." When I look at them, the second thing I do is, what's the most important stuff? Because not everything on the screen is important. There are buttons in Microsoft Word you've never pressed, probably. There's going to be buttons in these computer interfaces that our students will never need to use. And then there'll be some that they use 100 times a day. And so getting that priority is another thing that you can find out. So let's talk about matching the skills. And here's probably what I found most importantly, because I know, and you know for sure the detailed skills about your reading, writing, math, and English of your students. But I found that talking to workers and learners about what tech they are already using, what is difficult, if they don't use any tech, why not? What have they tried? And at Tyson, we have a really structured interview that we use to interview workers with that really does a great job. In about 8 or 9 minutes, I can tell all kinds of things about the digital savvy of a worker based on what they use at home, what they don't use at home, what they've tried to use, and what they use at work. So it goes back to discussions and rapport with your students. Have the discussion. You'll hear a lot. They will tell you a lot, and you can use that to help prioritize the skills that they're doing and the skills that they are learning. And when they say things like, "Well, I'd really like this job, the job that we have that pays more, but I don't think I can do it because it uses some digital tool," or they say, "Hey, we're getting digital tools at work, and I'm worried that I might get laid off, or I might get put into some other position I don't like because I love my job." That's a discussion point for you to say, "Hey, this is all about reading, writing, math, and digital, and I can do those things," and engaging. And I'm telling you, with the business community and with your technical departments in your colleges, they're going to be eager partners in this because they want to help those businesses and those workers get those jobs and stay employed. Finding out where you need practice, again, talking to the workers and supervisors. Where are people having trouble? What are they doing that they're struggling with? What are pieces of equipment that were purchased that languished and no one used? And I hear that a lot. People will say at Tyson and elsewhere, they'll say, "Well, we made these investments 5 years ago and we thought it was great. We loved it, but the workers didn't." And probably because they couldn't use it or because we didn't know how to train them. And so those stories are cautionary tales, and they're out there everywhere. Millions of dollars are spent in companies with things that people can't use or don't want to use or can't figure out. Because the people that buy the equipment are often not the people that know the workers. And so having those discussions is super valuable. And you can, if you want to get to a business, maybe you've never talked to business, go to like a workforce board meeting or a chamber of commerce meeting and bring the topic up, because everybody's implementing tech in some way or fashion at their business. And as soon as they see you as someone that might know how to do that for low-skilled adults, you become their best friend very quickly. And then I want to kind of round the corner here to the end here and talk about, how do you develop relevant curriculum? What do you do to develop curriculum? And I want you guys to put in the chat about how you develop curriculum right now. If it's stuff that you don't know how to teach or is very new to you, what are some things that you do? Put it in the chat there. Talking to technicians, very good. Student feedback, researching the subject. You guys are great. Yeah. Content experts are gathered for input. Yes. If you work at a college or with a college, they love doing that, and it's very useful. Looking for authentic materials. You guys are experts. That's why you joined this this conference call, because you really wanted to build your skills for what's out there from another perspective. And I'm hoping I'm bringing some value to you, but I feel like you got a good step on this. So really good. Well, you know what you would do, and you've told me here, but let me tell you a little bit about what I did using AI. And I want to kind of round the corner here because this is all over the place. In fact, I'm feeling super saturated with AI, and that's not a good place to be. But it's pervasive in everything we're talking about and everything we're doing. But you may still be wondering, and our friends at World Ed, I want to give them a shout out. Rachel Riggs and Jen Vanek and Priyanka Sharma, those folks whose names you probably know, they have done such great work bringing the topic of AI along with other people to you guys through webinars, through CoAbe events, things like that. Because when it all kind of hit the world a few years ago, many of us were together talking about this and what kind of transformation it might mean. Some of us dove in, I did, and some were waiting on the side to kind of see where it goes. It's out there, and it is such a valuable tool that now, just in a few short months, I can't imagine doing the work I do without it. Not at all. I could never go back. So I want to bring that up as just kind of like the importance factor of how I've been able to accomplish things. But I want to kind of show you what I've done. So like this is one of my first AIs way back when. I wrote at the very top. My question was, what is a palletizer? And I didn't know what it was. I really didn't. This was like very early on. And so it told me the first response. And then I said, hey, simplify this for me. So I wrote the word simplify, and it gave me something else. And then I got a better response, a sharper response. So now I had a simplistic way to describe for myself, but also to describe to others and to workers and students what a palletizer was, which is really the robot that lifts boxes and puts them on pallets. And so when you get into these new tech tools, you're going to run across a million terms you've never heard. And just like with your students, boom, you're going to hit a wall and say, like, I can't move forward. I don't know the terminology. And those of you that teach English know you teach the words and the terms as a rule before you can teach comprehension. And it's the same with AI. You've got to inform yourself and you've got to learn. So let me tell you what my process is. This is just a snapshot of the spreadsheet I've used. So I get a word, and then I determine if it's a technical term or not. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. But these are words that I'm taking out of standard work instructions. So these are like the instructions that say, here's how to operate this robot, for example, or how to operate this scanner, whatever it is. And I take that language out of the standard work instructions and I pull out the vocabulary because I can do that and you guys can too, because that's what you do. But I look it up and I start to categorize it because I'm going to have hundreds of terms here, and I do. And then I look for synonyms and I use Chat GPT if it's a term I don't know. What's another name for this? What's a synonym for this is my prompt. And I start to develop a list of synonyms because that helps me learn what we're talking about, and it gives me a deeper bench of words I can use to describe things. Because remember, I'm trying to take complicated language that's written by an engineer or a technician and get it down to a low skilled level. I'm trying to get it down to 5th or 6th grade level. And you guys probably are too, because that's about as low as you can go because of all the technical terms that are in there. So I take it to Chat GPT and I do some more work on it. And then I review it in Chat GPT. If I'm unsure what it is, or if Chat GPT gives me something that is too long or too complicated, and so my prompts are simple. I'll say like, what is this? And it'll tell me in like 5 massive paragraphs full of technical language. And then I'll say, simplify it. And it'll do that. And if I'm still not there, or if I want to produce something for a student, I'll say, at a 5th grade level or a 6th grade level or a 7th grade level. I was doing stuff yesterday and I was floating around 7th and 8th grade. And here's where you have to use your critical thinking and your talent. Because a lot of times, I mean, this is just Chat GPT. This is just like large language, computers all over the world feeding information. The lower you go, if you say fourth grade or third grade, you start getting crazy references to like toys and toy boxes because it's trying to make analogies of complicated things to things that a fifth grader or a third grader or a second grader would know. So I found that fifth and sixth grade is this break point where you get away from the childlike content and you can just get simplified language, but you got to play with it. And this is where you're the expert. So you're taking things that you don't understand and you're putting it in to understand it. And then you're starting to use it as text that you might be able to actually create curriculum out of and clarify. If you want something that's step procedural driven, you can tell ChatGPT, take that 4 paragraphs and make it 7 bullets, and it'll do it beautifully, like as quick as you can imagine. If you haven't played with this, you need to. And then after I've done all this, I've got the internet out there and AI helping me. I take it back to the subject matter expert. That's what SME stands for. And I say, is this right? Because I'm not going to rely on myself because I'm new at this, and I'm not going to rely on AI to get it right. Because AI, as you guys know, it likes to dream and hallucinate and it makes mistakes. Yes, it does. I ran across a great one yesterday when I was working. And so I take it back to, in my case, the technicians at Tyson that work on automation. You might take it back to a technical faculty member and say like, hey, I took your curriculum that's written for college students and I'm bringing it down to a lower level. Is this still right? Because you can't teach the wrong stuff to your students. And so there's that extra step in there. And I found that calibration. I said this, I stopped counting how many times, but when I originally did this webinar, I think I had over 200 or 300 words. There were only 3 or 4 instances where the AI had completely got it wrong or left out something really big. So it was that good, but it wasn't perfect. And there's always improvements when your SMEs talk about it. So and I do that as a rule. I do it 2 or 3 times a day, sometimes, definitely 2 or 3 times a week. So here's an example. I didn't know what an in-feed was. It's in the instructions. It says like, watch for in-feed jam when, processing case through the palletizer. Well, a year ago, I was like, what on earth is any of that? So ChatGPT, I identified that's got to be some technical term. I came up with some synonyms, and then I started getting clarifications and simplifications. And then my subject matter expert approved it at the end. So there I went from something I did not know at all to something that I could present to students. Step 2 was about as simple as I can get it, because I'm still teaching these terms. I got to teach these terms, but the sentence structure is simple. And then the subject matter expert said, yeah, pretty good. Move on. So huge efficiencies using AI to do the work I'm doing would take months for me of heavy lifting. And I don't think I could do it very well. I'm doing things in days and weeks and hours sometimes and accelerating what I can do at work, which is great. But it also allows me time to do more quality where I need to do quality. And like, how will I teach this? What will the images look like? What will a handout look like for this? So it's a great way to find efficiencies in what you're doing, and a way to use the power of it to tackle things that you may not at first glance feel like you can do at all. And that's a great place to be for us. But it's more important because it's a place that our students are coming to us seeking help for. I'll wind up where I left off. If we're really in the business of changing lives, changing incomes, helping people quit a 3rd job and having 2, or 2 jobs and having 1, or averting a layoff, you've got to be on the front of doing this kind of work, because these are what are the things that are disrupting work in our workers' lives, and we can do it. I did it. I'm no genius. I just got smart with the tools I had. I had I had better access because I work at Tyson to do this stuff, but you have good access because we've been doing IETs for years. You've been working with technical faculty for years. You go out to lunch with them, you talk with them. It's time to kick up that conversation to another level and enhance what we're doing to stay ahead of where our students need us. So think to yourself and ask yourself, how can I build deeper digital resiliency for diverse technology tools that are used at work? That's your marching orders to go in and go do that. And I'm real happy. I'll be happy to take questions in the chat for the remainder here, or you can send me an email if you've got bigger discussions. But this is where we need to be, and this is where we are. But it's not about the PC, folks, anymore. It's not about the smartphone. And I'm not saying don't teach those things, but we have conquered that. We've got oodles of curriculum. We've got all kinds of great things. Our content standards have those, but we've got to really move to the next phase. So I want to thank you. If you've got questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll hang on a few minutes. And then if you think about this and want to talk more about it, you know how to email me, and I'm happy to talk about those topics. Yeah, Irene, you're right. The digital divide is very real for all of us. And it has changed from when that term was originally devised. And that's the one thing I want to ask you to do. You are watching this, maybe not your peers. Maybe you're one of 10 ESL teachers or 50 ESL teachers, or of your faculty, you're the only one that could make time to do this. Have a discussion about it. Ask others. If you're a leader, find a way to start building these discussions into your intake with students. We love to do intake. Students love to talk. They like to talk about what's worrying them. Talk about technology, and you will probably come out of that intake session with your eyes much wider open to what value you can bring to your students, into your business community, into your economies, because we need people to keep jobs in America and your community. You don't need factories moving overseas because people can do this work and ours can't. That's not going to happen. We got to build it ourselves. And you guys are now at the front seat because our business community and our technical trainers don't have the skills necessarily to do this well. And that's what our mandate is. So yes, the recording is going to be available. Bethel might be able to come in and tell us a little bit about this as we wrap up. But I want to thank you guys for everything today. It's been great. Your feedback is making me feel like you're just experts. So I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I think a lot of you might have picked up some cool tricks too. And we are all learning. I'm learning too. So thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you doing something else out there, wild and crazy. There's so much great stuff happening right now with digital. Get involved. You probably are. So thank you very much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, Anson. There is a poll. If you can answer that before you leave, we thank you for attending the session. And the recording will be available within 24 hours. You'll also receive your certificate 24 hours following the live webinar ended. So tomorrow by around 3 o'clock, you should receive your certificate for attending. And again, we thank you for joining us, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yep.